Hello everyone, my name is Valentina. I'm a booktuber from Universidad Pedagógica Nacional. I'm studying a bachelor degree in Spanish and English, and today I'm going to talk about Emily Dickinson biography and the analysis of nature what we see. So let's start. Well, Emily Dickinson was born on December 10, 1830 in United States, Massachusetts, and died in May 15, 1886, Amherst. Dickinson was an American lyric poet with Walt Whitman. She's considered to be one of the two leading 19th century American poets. Only 10 of Emily Dickinson's nearly 1,800 poems are known to have been published in her lifetime. She sent hundreds of poems to friends while apparently keeping the greater number to herself. She habitually worked in bursts of lines of 3 or 4 stresses. Her initial offerings have been seen as both experimental and influenced by 18th century Immunization words. What else? She ignored the usual rules, of versification and even of the grammar. And the intellectual content of her work, she was original. Her verse is distinguished by its epigrammatic comprehension, haunting personal voice, and lack of high polish. Many of his poems are about death, immortality, nature, loneliness, good, and love. Until Dickinson was in her mid-20s, her writing mostly took the forms of letters, and a huge number of those that she wrote from age 11, sent to her brother Austin, or to friends or her own sex, especially Avian Roth, Jane, and Susan Gilbert, who would marry Austin. This generous communication overflowed with humor, anecdote, invention, and sombre reflection. In general, Dickinson seems to have given and demanded more from her correspondent. She received on her occasion, she interpreted her correspondent's basic responses in replying as evidence of negligence or even treason. Indeed, the loss of friends, whether through death or lack of interest, became a basic pattern of Dickinson. Much of her writing, both poetic and epistolary, seems premised on feeling of abandonment and machine effort to deny, overcome, or reflect on a sense of solitude. Dickinson's closest friends like literature. She was introduced to the poetry of Ralph Waldo Emerson by one of her father's law students, Benjamin Newton, and to Elizabeth Barrett Browning by Susan Gilbert and Henry Vaughan, gifted college students. In 1855, Dickinson traveled to Washington, D.C. with her sister and father, who was ending his terms of as United States representative. When Dickinson was 25 years old, her family moved back to her house. Let me show you her house. Yes, we can see it now. So yes, he come back with her family, as I mentioned before. The house where she lived her first 10 years, and Dickinson Mansion on Main Street of Hammersmith. Her home from the rest of her life, still standing, has become a favorite destination for her admirers. So if you want to know that beautiful house, you can go because it still exists. Well, this mansion is in Main Street in Amherst, as I mentioned before. Well, her home from the what could I say? Ah, yes. Her mother became incapacitated in this house by mysterious illness that lasted from 1855 to 1859. Both daughters were complete, like to give more themselves to domestic pursuits. So she was like, um, like clean, like make could like prepare food, everything. Well, various events outside from the home made the poet decide to return to Quito from her profession between 1857 and 1855. Development as a poet, although Dickinson had begun composing verse by her late teens, few of her early poems are extant. Among of them are two of her young. Okay, let me check what are those poems. I will show you. Okay, so well, among these poets of burlesque Valentines, the exuberant expressions of affections she sent to friends of her young. Two other poems dating from the first half of the 1850s draw a contrast between the world as it is and the more peaceful alternative. Variously eternity or certain imaginative order. So she was like imaginary words with more peaceful, not chaos. Well, I will show you a list of poems by Emily Dickinson. So we have here a bee, his version is carried, a bird came down to the walk, a breed of but vision illness, a bird dog, a cup of lead across the sky, a charming best face, a that grace in twice a grace, a chili peas infest the grass. So in that poem we can see what I mentioned before about the new word, the new serene, the new peaceful word. So we can see here in a chili peas infest the grass. We can see here a clock stopped, a cloud withdrew from the sky, a coffin, a counterfeit, a curious cloud surprised the sky, darting fear. But you can see a lot of poems that she wrote. But today we're gonna study this poem, Nature is What We See, in terms of metric, rhyme scheme, and literary figures. Okay, well, so nature is what we see. I will read the poem first. Nature is what we see. The hill, the afternoon, square eclipse, the bloom bee. Nature is heaven. Nature is what we heard. The bubbling, the sea. Thunder, the cricket. Nay, nature is harmony. Nature is what we know, yet have no art to say. So impotent our wisdom is to her simplicity. So this is the poem. Now we can analyze metric. So nature what we see by Dickinson is standards doesn't have a very strict method. By and large, each line has three stressed syllables, and these often fall into iambic pattern. Many lines can thus be considered iambic trimeter, as is the case with lines 2, the hill, the afternoon, and line 6, the blink, the sea. So there is a quite a bit of variation on this pattern. However, take line 1, which begins with a truche, the opposite of an iamb. So nature is what we see. The speaker begins lines with stressed beats quite a bit, as in line 3. We can see line 3, squirrel eclipse the bumblebee. And line 7, which begins with a dactyl, followed by a thrush. These lines feels truncated because it has just 5 syllables. Most of the poem lines have 6. Thunder and thunder cricket in line 7. 4, 5, 6, 7. Thunder the cricket is the last line of the verse. Okay, well, what else? So in lines 4, there is nay, nature is having, and 8, nay, nature is harmony. Meanwhile, features the same forceful opening stress beats. All in all, this frequent variation makes the poems feel spontaneous and honest. A strict method may feel too authoritative and self-assured. This in turn would be odd, and the speaker view that ultimately they can't really define what nature is. The metrical inconsistency reflects the speaker's struggle to capture nature in words. Notice, however, that the final 3 lines fall into perfect iambic meter, yet have no art to say. So impotent our wisdom is to her simplicity. Once the speakers acknowledge the limits of human art, that art becomes smooth and steady, and the poems turn to regular meter, her melodies to harmony, and simplicity begins being described. Okay. In terms of meter. Now, in terms of metric, nature what we see features and strangle rhyme patterns, lines 1, nature is what we see, 3, a squirrel eclipsed the bumblebee, 6, nature is what we heard, and A, nature